That is, of course, Gene Moore's organ score for Carnival of Souls. That's about as creepy as I think I want to be this year. We've had too much creep going on last few weeks.
Herc Harvey.
Yeah.
It's Herc only movie, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, he made Industrials before that.
Well, yeah, before that.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of the actress who was really quite good in that movie.
She's
as
terrific.
She roamed around. But she kind of went away after that movie.
They all
too.
did. They all did. That's why it's one of those cool cult movies because you don't you look at it. One reason why I honestly think this is an interesting subject to probably discuss another time or in a piece. But one reason I think Carnival of Souls and certainly something like Night of the Living Dead. Why they're effective is because even decades and generations later, you don't look at them and go, "Oh, I recognize her or him," and I saw them. No, you don't. They live in a universe all their own, and all those people live only in that movie.
Yeah.
It's just self-contained.
I can only think of Dwayne Jones.
Dwayne Jones, yeah.
I can only think of him. I know that he was an actor and worked a little before and a little after, but just that.
Pretty
Night
much.
of the Living Dead. Yeah.
Pretty much, The movie stars will take you out right away.
It's the big Halloween show.
It's the big Halloween show. We're gonna go through some. Some years we get better stuff than others. We've got some good spooky new stuff here. But just right off the bat, Tim, what is your? Halloween is a week away. What is your favorite scary movie of all time?
This is a little bit tough for me because sometimes I get a little confused about what we're going to call a scary movie because you have monster movies. They can do your Frankensteins and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And then of course you have your Friday the 13th, your Freddy's,
sure.
and your Wes Craven, this that completely different kind of movie than a monster movie.
Yeah.
And then you have your hack and slash.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So anyway, 13 Ghosts. As a young,
that's a pretty great one.
As a young kid, and it was particularly in terms of horror, Halloween, and that kind of horror. As a young kid, 13 Ghosts pretty much nailed me.
Yeah.
Move forward a little bit, and that first Jamie Lee, the Freddy movies and all of that. I didn't really care anything about that. The Friday the 13th, didn't care about that. But that first Halloween movie. John Carpenter, young Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Meyer. I gotta tell you, that was a damn effective movie,
yep.
and even more effective was Halloween 2, which picks up literally where the first film, the hospital is still on fire.
Yeah,
and we move forward. That was a pretty effective. I know they're corny choices, but I like them a lot.
I still always go with Jack Clayton's The Innocents.
The Innocents, indeed. Another classic.
Based on the Henry James Turn of the Screw, which is just a black and white, beautiful movie that has some ghostly moments that creep me out. I always break horror films down into scary movies, generally, into three classes. There are slasher, monster, and ghost.
Yes.
And slasher movies just gross me out. They don't scare me. It's all kind of
that's
shock and thunderclap effects.
That's your Friday the 13th.
I know all the tricks. And the gore stuff just never really does anything for me.
Dario Argento.
Nah, don't really love that. Monster movies don't really scare me either. I love Frankenstein.
They don't scare me, but I thoroughly enjoy them.
Ghost movies scare the crap out of me every single time, and they scare me because you just don't know what they're going to do. They're ghosts. There are no rules.
In terms of recent ones, relatively recent, Ghost, The Others.
Yeah.
Very solid.
Terrific.
That movie,
Terrific.
The rather obvious now, but nevertheless very effective at the time, The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Which is a ghost movie.
Yeah, that and The Others were kind of back to back. The Others came out just on the heels of that and really capitalized.
Yeah, they can get really strong. Not a lot of new ones being made that captivate me, to be honest with you.
Well, we're going to start off with somebody who's made his fare of creepy, scary stuff, David Lynch. This is not a David Lynch movie. This is a Criterion Collection edition of David Lynch, The Art Life by John Wynne, Rick Barnes, and Olivia Neergaard-Holm. This is basically a documentary from just last year, 2016, almost an hour and a half long, that deals with, it's just basically a documentary portrait of David Lynch, his work, what it is to be a creator and live inside his head. And it is
that's what I'm sorry. Living inside David
living
Lynch's
inside
head.
his head.
That made me giggle.
And the extras are pretty thin. There's just a trailer and an interview with John Wynn. So a little bit of backstory here, real quickly. So as I have mentioned many times, my wife worked for David Lynch for a number of years. Went to the Christmas parties up there, and it's always very entertaining. My wife's hand is in Mulholland Drive.
Yes,
When you see Naomi Watts' hand reaching into the bag of money near the end of the movie, that's a pickup shot. That's my wife's hand. But the and my wife was a production executive on that movie. But the other thing is that the John Wynn made a previous documentary about David Lynch that is also out on DVD that we were quite nearly involved in. It didn't quite happen. It's too bad.
That was unfortunate.
You remember that?
Oh,
when
yeah.
when that was all.
Yeah. You guys,
We were gonna get anyway. Long story. That's for another show. But in any case, so I am familiar with John and his work, and he and a few other people have orbited David for a few years, capturing his work and his environment and his process, and it's good. David doesn't let a lot of people into his inner circle, and when he does, he lets you in completely. So the access here is what's really a pleasure to watch, and it is a deserving Criterion edition.
I want to jump over to what I just saw it there a second. Oh, Innocent Blood.
Oh yeah.
Which they put on the top of this from the director of American Werewolf in London on the DVD on the Blu-ray that I'm looking at here. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, anybody who knows anybody who remembers Innocent Blood, which came out in 1992, knows that it was directed by John Landis, and knows that John Landis directed American Werewolf in London. It seems to me a little bit, obscure to put from the director of Werewolf. First of all, if you're 19, you have no idea who the hell.
What they should do is they say, from the father of Max Landis.
then it would actually be a useful tagline there. But my thing is, I remember this movie.
I do too.
And I rather like this movie.
Yeah.
It's a dark movie for John Landis.
Well, it came out shortly after La Femme Nikita.
Yeah.
When
that's the actress Anne
yes,
Anne
Perriot. When Anne Perriot was kind of a thing for a moment, and this was a really good follow up to that. She was kind of pioneering a persona as a dangerous woman.
Yeah.
And how do you follow up something like La Femme Nikita, where you're an assassin and you're blowing the crap out of everything? Well, playing in a vampire movie is not a bad choice.
Yeah, particularly a rather dark and well-made movie like it. Robert Loggia is the thing that I remember about this movie that was quite good. Anyway, neat movie. Not a lot on this DVD, pretty much, or Blu-ray, just the movie.
And then we've got a movie called Jackals, which is directed by Kevin Grotert, who did the last Saw movie. And I find that weird to say that there was a last Saw movie, because I fully expected we'd be on Saw 39 by now. But they called it quits at a certain point, and Kevin Grotert did it, and his new movie is Jackals, which is, I don't know, it's kind of more of the same. It's not really going to be much of a franchise, but it's got Jonathan Skeck and...
I saw it for the show. I didn't like it.
It's not, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's
cult, like a cult. These people in the family, and then they get taken one by one. It's just what it is. Like
it is what it is. It's just one of those movies. It's not incompetent. It just doesn't do anything that you haven't seen a million times before. But I mean, it's effective for what it is. So you can go check that out. I mean, they all let me put it this way. If we counted up all the cabins, all the remote cabins where horrible things happen in horror movies,
starting with what was the first one?
Oh, Cabin in the Woods,
Yeah,
and it's on and on and on.
Yeah.
If you start counting up all the cabins where horrible things happen in horror movies, you will have more cabins than exist in North America.
I know.
There aren't that many cabins. People don't go to cabins anymore. They go to like hotels in nice places, and then they will go into the woods. Then they go back to the hotel. Cabins? Who stays in a cabin anymore?
Evil Dead. That's what I was thinking. All those Evil
Dead.
Yeah. Starting with
cabins.
the dead cabins. Blackenstein. I
Yes.
I rather enjoyed this movie. 1973 Blackenstein movie, not to be mistaken with Blackula, which is a different movie.
What I'm so happy that Severin did. Severin Severin airbrushed the artwork on the cover of
yeah,
this.
so that you could put it on the cover.
Yeah, so you could put it on the cover. There are certain female parts that they airbrushed out.
Oh man,
But it's
neat
great
stuff.
kitsch.
Yeah, it's a great kit, and just loaded with special features. This particular one, interviews, archive, news footage, interviews with directors, and just all kinds of really great graphic design stuff. Which is really, to a certain extent, these movies were more about their graphic design,
Yes.
posters, and all that,
Sure.
than they were the actual movies.
Yep. We got 10 horror films on one disc here, and this is for people who just don't want to spend a lot of money, but really just want a whole lot of horror movies. Just put this on a loop during your party and scare the children as they show up to get their candy. This is a 10 horror film collection from Mill Creek. Mill Creek does these bargain collections every once in a while. A lot of stuff on here. The Purgation, Bloodline, All Alone, Billy's Cult, Phobia, Summer School, Vanished. The only one that's really kind of significant, most of these are just straight to video cheapy. Stevie has a little bit of a profile. But this is just stuff to put on in the background, really. This is kind of just a party filler disc, but it's fine. It's 10 horror films from Mill Creek. And then we've also got a Joe D'Amato film called Beyond the Darkness. This is also from Severin, and this is a little bit of a legendary quote unquote banned movie. Now, I always get a little bit curious about that because I've done some research into this, and I've found that at least half, probably as much as 80% of movies that claim that they were banned never were.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a marketing hook. When they, there's so many of these that I used to get on DVD and on Blu-ray and say, banned in 20 countries. And you do your research and you find out nobody ever banned you. You were never even released in 20 countries. You couldn't no one picked you up. That doesn't mean you're banned. Like, distributors not being interested in you is not censorship.
No.
It means your movie's crap. So don't try to spin that. But they do. God bless them, they do. So Joe D'Amato is kind of a low-budget horror auteur. This movie was made in 1979. Joe D'Amato made a lot of bad movies very quickly. They're all like this. And they're all kind of the same, He's kind of one of the lower-tier giallo filmmakers.
Yeah.
And there's no real reason to see this other than the fact that it's gory as can be and hysterically so, and it's just goop and gore, and it's just really, really nasty. But it's called Beyond the Darkness. It's on Blu-ray from Severin, and I'll tell you right now, it's if you have a lot of people watching this, it's probably going to be hilarious. The more people there are watching this, once everybody gets laughing, it's going to be hysterical. So I'm going to recommend this for parties. Probably not to watch by yourself because it'll creep you out a little bit. But totally uncensored, a movie that was banned by no one who actually saw it.
That's funny. Children of the Corn, 1984. Linda Hamilton, about the same year of the original Terminator.
Yeah.
Linda Hamilton was in this movie with Peter Horton and a bunch of creepy-ass kids, adapted, of course, from the Stephen King novel. Children of the Corn was actually a pretty effective movie for the day.
Yep, sure was.
The sort of possessed kids. Basically, it's a cult of these weird-looking kids with sort of strange hair who believe that everyone who's over 18 must be killed. Which, frankly, interestingly enough, I think some kids think today. This thing is just packed with all kinds of special features. This is a special edition, a brand new 2K restoration, stereo sound 5.1. DTS. It's just really neat. Audio commentaries all over the place from just about everybody. So I don't know if you're into Stephen King adaptations, of which there are several floating around right now.
Yeah.
Interesting that Stephen King has been writing books that have been adapted into movies since the 70s.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Just and
Carrie was the first, wasn't it?
Carrie was the first. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sissy Spacek.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Since the 70s, he's been having his films, his books adapted into movies. Anyway, this is a pretty neat from Arrow Video, Children of the Corn.
So Phantasm was really a phenomenon of its day. That was when horror films were kind of coming into a new profile. that late 70s period, which is when you had Carrie. It's when you were kind of veering into The Shining in 1980. You had Halloween. Friday the 13th was knocking off Halloween. I mean, there were a lot of interesting things going on in horror in the late 70s. You had Hills Have Eyes. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of stuff going on there. And Phantasm was part of that. And Phantasm was kind of the exception to the rule, because Phantasm is, in many regards, Phantasm almost prefigures Clive Barker in a way, doesn't it? It's supernatural, but it's not. It's almost like sci-fi.
That's sort of like cultish underpinnings, netherworld,
Yeah.
sort of things going on, but not directly sort of devil worship. It's not
No.
Rosemary's Baby or anything
No.
like that. It's like these other dimensions and
And
whatnot.
that crazy ball with the knives in it.
with the spin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody remembers is the ball. You know, the ball just is zipping around, burying itself in people's heads, and it's quite a thing. So the original Phantasm was written and directed by Don Coscarelli, who clearly had no idea that he was creating something that was such a cult thing. And Angus Scrimm, who plays
That sort of
the big
tall,
dude.
big
Yeah.
dude with the,
So these are on Blu-ray, but they have the complete 5-movie collection. I never realized there were 5 of these damn things.
I knew there were a few, but I didn't know they made. I didn't know they made it to 5.
Yeah, they made it to 5. All right. The last one was in 2016, last year.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
You know,
So-
there was a time in my life when a Phantasm movie would have been a thing I made a point to go see.
Yep. Well, it's interesting how spaced out they are. You know, they really are very, very spaced out is the weird thing. The original Phantasm was 1978. It took 10 years to make Phantasm 2, Don Coscarelli again.
5 of those probably was the film growing to sort of cult status.
Yeah.
You know, it took a while for somebody to realize, hey, people like this crap.
And then it took another 5 years to do Phantasm 3. And then another 5 years to do Phantasm 4. And then it was 18 years to get to Phantasm 5, which is kind of amazing. Now, Don Coscarelli did not have the same involvement in 5. Let's just say, David Hartman directed it, and Coscarelli was involved as a producer and creative talent and so forth. But he clearly was passing the baton in Phantasm 5, and it kind of shows. But it's still, it knows its game, it knows what it needs to do. So you can get all 5 of them, which basically do the same thing in slightly different and more interesting ways. And Angus Scrimm is always awesome. And they all come in a really cool slim case, the 5-movie Phantasm collection, and that's a really good one for Halloween. I think that being available is great.
And for a certain kind of fan, that's
for
actually,
sure.
and that's a nice way to put that out. Give me all 5 of them.
Just one thing, yeah.
Just give me all 5 of the damn
that's
movies.
it. I wish they'd have done it in Blu-ray, though. I wish they'd have done it.
That would have been Besetment. Interesting little film here. Actually fairly well done. I saw this one for the show too. It's about this young woman who goes to work at this hotel, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and there's this couple that runs the hotel, and it ends up being one of those things of where they have some sort of bad intentions in mind for the people who come work there, who all disappear, and she ends up falling into the trap of all of that and has to fight her way out of it, and has the moxie to do it. Look, this is the kind of thing where a gal gets her lips sewn together. So
Yeah.
the tagline: "You can't scream if you can't open your mouth." That's pretty direct. that's pretty solid, and this movie is too. Not a whole lot on this DVD though, much more than the movie. Nevertheless, 2016 film, sorry, and it's actually pretty sharp if you're into that horror kind of business.
Dan O'Bannon was a writer on Alien, and one of the great genre writers of the 1970s and the 80s. And Dan eventually made his foray into directing. And 1991's The Resurrected is reputable. I can't say that it's particularly good. It's sort of, I'm giving him a pass just because you're trying to cut your teeth and doing some low budget horror, and that's fine. This is out from the Scream Factory line of Shout Factory on a Blu-ray, The Resurrected. I always love the taglines. Death used to be the end. Now it's just the beginning. Okay. You worked hard on that one, I guess. So anyway, this is based on a Lovecraft story called The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. And it's a it's kind of a. I mean, it really is kind of a zombie movie.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea of people coming back to life is zombies. So it's really not, other than the title, it doesn't really do anything that's all that new, especially in our era where we have zombie television shows that are scarier than this on a daily basis. But still, some good performances here. Chris Sarandon is very, very good. John Terry is very good as they can be, under the circumstances. And, Dan O'Bannon, not a bad director. Should have been a better movie, but all things considered, not bad at all.
Let's see. What do I have here? Suffer the Little Children.
Oh, this is this thing. Ooh.
Yeah, but
this is kind of a cult film too.
Yeah, British, it's sort of a British horror film. That's actually. But what I love here is the very, very long and involved. I'm going to go ahead and call it a tagline, but I can't imagine anyone driving down the street and actually taking the time to realize. Shudder the Little Children. The Evil Dead scared you. The Exorcist haunted you. This film you will remember for the rest of your life. The most controversial horror film of all time. It takes a little time to get through all of that. It's quite a claim.
It's quite a claim. Yeah,
this is the strong uncut version. The strong uncut version, as opposed to the
weak uncut version.
The weak uncut version. Anyway, whatever. A tale of a child's demonic and supernatural powers. Anyway, this proceeds like The Exorcist and all that business, and it is actually a pretty gruesome film and heartily bloody. Special features include an interview with the director Alan Briggs. And a couple of other interviews here, and some, the trailer and whatnot. Nevertheless, it's a classic film on Intervision DVD.
We've got a really. This is kind of. Look, I love haunted house movies as much as anybody else, but you got to make the premise work. You can't just go completely crazy. So this is called The Hatred. And the tagline here is, "Your fears are real." They don't work hard on these, do they?
No.
Your fears are real, really, as opposed to when my fears are fake. What does that mean?
It really is nonsensical.
What does that mean? Come on, make an effort, for crying out loud. It's a horror movie. So this is a haunted house movie. You got a girl who goes babysitting and brings her friends along, and turns out the house is haunted, and there's something to do with a Nazi, and it is like it gets even weirder than that. It's like, it's not enough that it's one thing. There are other things. I won't give it away, but it doesn't make any sense. Let's just call it another kind of an Indiana Jones horror film set in a haunted house with a Nazi. So I'll leave it at that. It's not very good. These kinds of movies tend to, the problem with the haunted house genre is this: the people who tend to make the low budget horror films that are set in a haunted house, they're not doing it for the right reason. If it's set in a haunted house, what they're thinking of is, oh, that's cool, man. We only need to sit in the one house. That we'll save a ton of money. This will be an easily made cheap movie. We don't even need to get permits.
Yeah.
Right? That's how they're thinking. They're thinking pure practicality. One location, no permits. It's great. We'll use Joey's house. We'll shoot it in Joey's house, and we can. That scene where she gets decapitated. We'll use Joey's mom's bedroom for that. That'll be perfect. And they can use the bathroom as a dressing room. That's how they start thinking. The point of a haunted house movie is not the house. The point of the haunted house movie is the history of the house. And just because you have a location doesn't make it a haunted house.
Yeah.
The story has to dictate the location, and very often the best haunted house movies don't take place exclusively in a haunted house.
No, they take place in like a ranch style just split level. No, that house ain't haunted.
And like Poltergeist is a haunted house movie.
Yeah.
And the end of Poltergeist is a great big budget thing where a graveyard erupts from. You know what I mean? It's like you can't.
Yeah, the house is. You gotta have something going. Anyway, Cathy's Curse, 1976. I remember this movie. I don't remember it from 1976, but I remember watching it on television when it used to run fairly often. Actually, it's a neat movie. This is a haunted little girl movie. A possessed little girl movie.
Yeah.
So around the time of The Exorcist, The Exorcist spawned a whole mess of these.
Yeah.
And some were better than others, and a lot of them just had to do with how they could outdo some of the events that happened in The Exorcist. You'll of course remember the stuff with the pea soup, and some bright special effects guy figured out a way to spin Linda Blair's head around, fake head around the thing. And that was it. So these movies were all trying to figure out how to do that. So this one here, Cathy's Curse, Eddie Malaton directed the film. But again, I love the tagline. I got to read it for you. It's I sent mommy to the madhouse. I scared the butler to death. I threw the nanny out the window. Now there are 3 of us left.
See, that's a good tagline.
Better than the movie. Better than the movie.
That's great.
So pretty neat. Anyway, Blu-ray, out on Blu-ray. She has the power to terrorize.
That's pretty. See, that's great.
Cathy's
I like
Curse.
that. Tim, did you know that there are horror films on Lifetime?
Really? The ladies over there at Lifetime?
I'm telling you, apparently they've got some horror films going on over at Lifetime. We have a 4-film Lifetime horror film collection: Big Driver, Manson's Lost Girls, Devil's Diary, and Hush Little Baby. Now, that's I can't imagine what kind of horror films you're going to be doing over at Lifetime, but that's, more power to you. That's a more diverse lineup than I would have expected. They are not particularly great or anything. This is from Lionsgate. Big Driver is is based on Stephen King material. Manson's Lost Girls is pretty silly. Hush Little Baby, probably the best of the 4 of them. Devil's Diary is kind of routine, but a lot of people show up in these things. I mean, they got a decent cast for some of these. Olympia Dukakis has been nowhere to be found. She shows up here. So, Lifetime's willing to put a little bit of money out, and you could do worse.
I have got a Vincent Price collection here. 5 Frightening Features is what it's called. Look, some of these actually, House. You asked at the top of the show. I should have said House on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
Which is a pretty good movie. They remade that movie. It seems like I don't know 10, 15 years ago or something. The Vincent Price movie is better. We've also got the Jackals here, and we've got Shock 1946. And we've got The Last Man on Earth. Forgot about that. That too is actually that's actually a pretty creepy movie. The Last Man on Earth, 1960. And we've got The Bat as well on this movie, 1959, with Agnes Moorehead, of course. And so anyway, some of these movies are actually pretty good. And I can recommend them. This is from Mill Creek. Not a whole lot else on this disc, but hey, 5 Vincent Price films, including The House on Haunted Hill. I'd go for it.
So there's a thing here called the Poughkeepsie tapes. This was made in 2008. It has become kind of a cult film. This is from Scream Factory, the line of Shout Factory. And it's okay. I mean, I'm trying to cut this a little bit of slack because it's in that found footagey Blair Witch Project kind of vein. Based on the idea that in the 1990s there was a serial killer who was never caught and then left behind a collection of incriminating videotapes, taunting but incriminating videotapes, and those are the Poughkeepsie tapes. And so that's what this is all kind of framed around. I mean, I wouldn't call this. It's creepy. It's a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. It's creepy, more conceptually than in execution. But it's certainly novel. I give them credit for trying to do something interesting and original and different. And this may be worth, for people that like these particular kinds of movies, might be worth taking a look at. That's the Poughkeepsie tapes. And it's the first time I've seen the word Poughkeepsie associated with a movie since The French Connection.
Cult of Chucky. The first Chucky movie, which was in called Chucky, was called Child's Play.
Yeah, it was.
1988, believe it or not.
Wow.
Almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Didn't review that movie. I did review Child's Play 2 when they were still called Child's Play movies, which was 1990. I reviewed that movie for our old magazine, Entertainment Today magazine.
That's right.
And who knew in 1988, 1990 that this would go on until 2017, all the way up to Cult of Chucky, which came out last year. And look, these movies, it's interesting when they first started in 1988. Chucky was an animatronic, in an hydraulic
Yeah.
little doll thing.
Yeah.
They would actually move around. By the time you get to this movie, Chucky in this movie is quite often CGI.
Which
it's CGI Chucky.
doesn't make him scarier.
No, it just means he can move faster, jump around like that Yoda and
in Star Wars.
Kind of thing. Nevertheless, I like the context of this movie. This movie picks up where the last movie left off. Relatively speaking, there was one person still alive. It seems like she had murdered her whole family. They send her away to an insane asylum. We pick up with her in the crazy house. She believes that she in fact killed her whole family. She, even the scenario in her head. The psychiatrists have convinced her, no, you did this thing and you're gonna have to reconcile with it. And he introduces the Chucky doll to her, and in the sessions there at the asylum, in order to sort of convince her. And what do you know? He happens to introduce her to the same Chucky doll.
Nice.
In the happenstance. Anyway, pretty intense stuff for Halloween. Deleted scenes here. You got the whole backstory of all the Chucky movies here. You got feature commentary with the writer, director, and executive producers, and it's kind of interesting. Chucky, going back almost 30 years now. This one, The Cult of Chucky, Blu-ray DVD.
So Mario Bava, who is not a director I normally like, I'm not really a Bava fan, or a Giallo fan for that matter. But in 1966, Mario Bava made a movie which is now out as part of Kino Classics' Mario Bava collection. It is called Kill Baby Kill, and which is hysterical. So Mario Bava's Kill Baby Kill is actually a really interesting film, and it uses a particularly common horror trope in a really interesting and funny way. So you have a guy who's a doctor. He goes to this remote village to do an autopsy on a woman who has passed. And there is resistance, let's say, from the small village, because they've got their own ways, and outsiders, how that is in horror movies when there's a small village and we don't like outsiders, and you don't understand, you don't know our history, all that kind of stuff.
It's funny. That's the exact same theme of the next movie. Don't torture you. Literally the same thing.
And the thing about all of these movies is whenever you get to a small village, some remote place that's completely cut off from the rest of civilization, and something weird is going on, don't try to figure which one of them is responsible for the weird goings on. They all are. The whole town. That's always the twist, right?
Wicker Man, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's always like, who's responsible for this? They all are. It's like Rosemary's Baby, right? Eventually you're really like, he's got his father's eyes. Oh no, all of you're all in on it. Oh, that's gross.
So this movie, Lucio Fulci movie, Don't Torture the Duckling. Literally the same storyline.
Who's Mario Bava's mentor?
Yeah, literally the same storyline. Goes to a small town, this backwards town, where a boy has gone missing. Well, several children have gone missing, and she's looking into it and trying to find out. And these people are acting all weird, and she doesn't know what's going on. And why aren't they being helpful? Well, they're not being helpful for a good reason. And she finds out. 1972 film. Look, I'm not that much into these sort of giallo stuff. Not so much. But generally speaking, this is a pretty good one. This one has all kinds of special edition content. This is a special edition, high definition Blu-ray. And look, if you're into this stuff, this one you definitely want to pick up. It has audio commentaries on it. It has the mono Italian and English soundtracks on it. So pick it up, subtitles, of course. Don't torture the Duckling. Interesting.
So I get to tell all my Richard Stanley stories again now, because I'm going to talk about Richard Stanley's new film, the documentary The Other World. And Richard Stanley, of course, is the one-time wunderkind who made Hardware.
Sherman is in Hardware? We have a friend who's an actor named... Yeah.
Sherman's in Hardware?
Yeah, he was in the Hardware.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to show me where.
About 1990, yeah. I'll show you.
Holy cow.
When he was first getting started. Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, yeah, Sherman, who we interviewed on this show, who's on Into the Badlands now.
Exactly.
He's playing Moon in Into the Badlands. Well, anyway, Richard Stanley, who wrote and directed Hardware, which was sort of the original cyberpunk movie, very, very legendary film, and later on made Dust Devil, and very famously was hired to do The Island of Dr. Moreau, and then fired.
The 1996 Island of Dr. Monroe.
Yes.
Val Kilmer and
yes, and he was very famously fired and then replaced by John Frankenheimer, and and
all kinds of issues.
It's just
with,
the film was
Brando on that.
and then of course, if you've seen the documentary about that, the Lost Soul, the Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, you know that at a certain point, Stanley himself, after he was fired, he went and did a Brando and set up camp downriver where he was becoming, basically a Colonel Kurtz.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And then some crew members one day on a little marijuana smoking expedition discovered him living in the woods down. It's bizarre. It's just so bizarre. So anyway, I've actually met Stanley. I have friends in common with him, and he's every bit as weird as you think. That was when a friend of mine who's from England was staying with me, and we went and visited Adam Simon, who unbeknownst to me was a neighbor of mine at the time. Adam Simon, who directed Carnosaur for Corman, and Adam was friends with Richard Stanley. So one Sunday afternoon, we were hanging out with Adam Simon, and Richard Stanley shows up in his with his long black hair and his black hat, and he brought a book full of necromancy along, and he and Adam really had fun just sort of getting into all of the occultic stuff of it. It was a memorable evening, I will say. But Richard Stanley, a brilliant, strange, colorful guy, and I'm sorry that he hasn't sort of stuck with filmmaking to the level that I think he warrants. But still, this is an interesting documentary. It's called The Other World. And what he does here, Richard Stanley lives in Europe now, and there's an area in France, and there's an area in the Pyrenees, in the French Pyrenees, known as the Zone, which, as legend would have it, has such a history of the occult that it is now a doorway, a pathway to the other world. And so Stanley has made a film that is effectively about that, a little bit more personal. There is some question as to where fact and fiction would converge on this, but still, it's on Blu-ray from Severin, and it's worth checking out, I think. Otherworld from Richard Stanley. Also, for the kiddies, we have Trick or Treat Spooktacular Collection, 13 Haunting Tales. And why not? You got to do something for the kids. It's not terribly terrifying, but it's got some, there's like Casper the Ghost is in here, and you got Ichabod Crane, and it's a lot of fun stuff. These are all animated things from animated producer Nick Bosestow. I knew I was going to mutilate that name.
Yeah, I mutilated it.
Anyway, he's an Oscar-winning producer, Nick Bosestow, and a bunch of Halloween-themed little kitty animated things. Casper the Ghost on Halloween. Why not?
Yeah.
We also have Trick or Treat on Sesame Street, which is just not even remotely scary, but it's fun. And the costumes are fun, and Muppets wearing costumes is hilarious, and I always enjoy it, especially when they do things like create Muppet pumpkins and Muppet vampires and everything else, and Grover is a giant cookie that the Cookie Monster tries to eat. It's hilarious. A lot of great songs, great music. It's good stuff. Sesame Street has a budget that people just don't fully understand. That is a huge production effort.
Yeah.
So anyway, Trick or Treat on Sesame Street, lots of fun.
I got a couple of three here that I think are interesting in their juxtaposition to one another. The first, of course, is the actual cult classic, Night of the Living Dead, that we spoke about just a little while ago. Of course, we lost George Romero not too terribly long ago. What, about a month ago, 2 months ago?
Yeah, it was about 2 months ago.
About 2 months ago. This is the 50th anniversary edition of that. Well, I must say, I didn't realize we were that far along. Blu-ray digital. Not a lot on this, which I suppose is what disappoints me about it, given that it is, in fact, such a classic film. You would have thought. I mean, do you know if there are any editions of this that have more business on it than this particular one?
This movie has been released so many times. There are like 5 or 6 different editions of this on DVD. There are a lot of extras on the other DVD releases that are not on this, but I would say not worth picking them up. Yeah. I would say stick with a good solid Blu-ray, and especially that one. That's from Mill Creek. That's really reliable.
It's gonna look good anyway.
Yeah.
And this movie here, Bag Boy Lover Boy, might be on a list. I remember this movie, and I got to tell you, this movie was fairly intense in terms of exploitation cinema.
Yeah.
In any case, directorial debut by Andres Torres. The film has an audio commentary on it with him and a few of the actors in the movie. And it's about this guy who sells hot dogs. He's a hot dog vendor in Manhattan. And it's funny. He's kind of funny little guy. And his hot dog cart is completely filtered. And this photographer named Ivan decides to make him the focus of his sort of.
Isn't it funny that those characters are never named,
Yeah.
Shmuley or
just Bob.
Bob
or whatever. And yeah, this gets pretty intense in a number of different ways. It's also effective as just horror cinema, but it also has some sort of psychological content in it that I think is fairly interesting. And the Devil's Candy. Look, it's at the top of the thing. It says from the producers of the Blair Witch Project, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's like more than 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going around pimping,
yeah.
pimping the fact that you're the producer of the Blair Witch Project, and you probably got it. However, I will say this about this movie: Cher Appleby is in it. And Vincent, what's his name? Vincent Taylor Pruitt.
Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Pruitt Taylor Vince is in it, and he's quite good too.
He plays good creepy people.
Yeah, he plays good creepy. He has a sort of size.
Got that eye, that lazy eye, and he's good.
It's another House from Hell sort of movie, but it's pretty neat. Special features include a commentary track with the director and a lot of behind the scenes stuff and visual effects gallery. And Cher Appleby, I like her a lot. So it's a fairly intense movie. If you're gonna delve off into some horror stuff, this might do you well. Blu-ray.
The Amsterdamned. I wonder how long it took him to think that one up. Let's a variation on damned. What if we can shoot the film in Amsterdam. They've got a tax credit.
I know.
The Amsterdamned. Oh, that's fantastic. We'll save money, and it's a cool title. So The Amsterdamned is a movie by a horror veteran, Dick Maas, Maas, who is Dutch. This is a Dutch film. We're joking a little bit about the tax credit. It's shot there because it's a Dutch film. Anyway, it's a Dutch serial killer movie by Dick Maas, which is fine. He does an audio commentary. Lots of featurettes on here, things with the stunt coordinator and so forth. It's perfectly effective, perfectly fine, totally respectable. It's not genius. It's not, it just has a certain reputation, so it's fine. But what I particularly love about this, once again, Tim, is the tagline. We're having a competition of bad taglines. I don't know. This may be the worst one of the day. Tim, be afraid. It means you're still alive. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Oh my goodness!
I don't know who comes up with this stuff.
At least they didn't say be very afraid.
Be afraid. It means you're still alive. Okay.
That's nuts.
I don't understand.
Let's see. Filmography of the late movie maverick Herschel Gordon Lewis. This is called Blood Feast, by the way.
Blood Feast is the original one. That's the one.
And look, Herschel Gordon was unhinged and quite good.
Were you there the day that we talked to David Friedman about this when we shot Schlock?
When we were shooting Schlock, yeah.
Okay, because that was the thing in Schlock, which was Ray's documentary that I produced and Tim worked on, and we all had a great time far too long ago. But David Friedman, who was Herschel Gordon Lewis's partner, was an interview subject in the film and talked extensively about this. And in the whole idea of Blood Feast, even though Herschel Gordon is the one who directed it, it was Friedman who kind of came up with the idea, because they had been making all of these nudie movies, cuties and nudist camp movies, and they were looking for something else that they could do inexpensively that would be a great drive-in movie in a real exploitation genre. And David Friedman, that blessed genius, that carnival barker soul of his, just thought gore. And there it was. That was it. Done.
Yeah, and next thing you know, they're eating people and
and baking them and cooking them and boiling them.
It more or less the same thing happens in this movie. Lots of special edition contents yet again on this. So for fans, check it out. It's a pretty neat sort of homage, I suppose, to the original.
And then we got a thing here called Lilith's Hell by Vincenzo Petrarolo. Um, you know, the whole. Okay, here's the thing about Lilith. Does anyone are you familiar with the legend of Lilith?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Little Fair came out of all of that.
So yeah, so Lilith, this is kind of an ancient Kabbalistic legend that God made Lilith before he made Eve, and Lilith kind of blew the deal, so God had to kill Lilith and then replace her with Eve. So you do get a lot of horror films, including one made by a friend of mine, which are all centered around the legend of Lilith. She's still around. She's going after men. She's looking for revenge. She hates
I
God.
always
It's
thought
all
it was so unfair because it made her pissy,
yeah.
like an angry succubus.
Yeah, anyway, they all kind of orbit the same concept, and they all sort of do the same thing. And so does Lilith's Hell. It's not a whole lot different from anything else, but it's got a little bit of a giallo profile to it. So, in this case, it is kind of a film within the film approach, but it's still doing the same thing. So, you know, if the legend itself is of interest to you, then you'll probably enjoy it. I find the Legend of Lilith a little bit tedious at this point.
Ruby is an interesting film, 1977 film. Let's see how I can explain it. The way this film was set up, there was this woman, she was married to this sort of like low-life mobster guy. This mobster guy gets taken out by these other mobster guys that he's associated with. She sees all of this happen. He swears vengeance. The mob mall chick that he's married to, that he's going out with, is pregnant at the time. She has the baby, and then some years later, 16 years later, this young child grows and starts taking out all these mob guys.
You know what? That happens so frequently.
Yes, don't you hate it? Again, though, I must say this is put together fairly well. 2K transfer and restoration. You got yourself a couple of wonderful director's interview with Curtis Harrington, and a few other commentary tracks on here with Harrington and the actors, including young Piper Laurie in this movie. So it's a classic sort of mid-70s horror film. That sort of, people don't remember this one quite as much as they do some of the other films that we talked about before, Carrie and whatnot. But Ruby was actually pretty damn intense for the day.
Demonic is a straight-to-DVD movie from that really should have done a whole lot better. Frankly, this is a seriously decent movie. James Wan was responsible for this, and James Wan is he's a sharp director. And in this case, he produced this, and Will Cannon directed it. And but it has more James Wan's make all over it. It's got his style, and it's got a good cast. Frank Grillo and Maria Bello play an investigative couple. She's a psychologist, he's a detective, and they're trying to figure out what happened to these college students that were kind of ghost hunting in this abandoned house and wound up dying in a horrible, horrible incident. And piecing all of that together and figuring out, what they did, what spirit did they arouse, and all that stuff. Not bad. I mean, yes, it's a haunted house movie, but it does what the other ones did wrong that we're talking about. They didn't just say, "Oh, here's a remote location, let's shoot a haunted house movie." They actually have a backstory and some production value, and it's not bad. I'm just sorry that this kind of is a straight to DVD thing. Maria Bello, I got to be honest, best actress never to have won an Academy Award. Or pretty close.
Yeah, you think about
she's really good.
History of Violence. She was excellent in the history. The Viggo Mortensen movie.
Yeah, she's so good in everything that she does. That William H. Macy thing.
Yeah.
What was that? The gambling thing in Vegas. What was that called?
Oh, good.
She was so good in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. I have in front of me the Stendhal Syndrome, which is the Dario Argento movie.
Yeah.
With Asia Argento in it. Young Asia Argento. It's about 1996.
And timely, of course, now that everyone knows that she was.
Yeah. The whole thing. In which we're talking about Harvey Weinstein again. We talked about him last week already, but anyway, she had herself a situation with that. Anyway, and a young Thomas Kretschmann in this movie too. This is a fairly good. I'm not a big Dario Argento sort of guy, but so far as his films go, this one has actually a narrative through line to it that makes sense in the real world. It's just about a police detective who's looking for a serial killer rapist and a young female police detective, and she herself sort of becomes the target of a serial killer sort of rapist.
This movie is going to get a lot of play.
Yeah, nowadays.
Just that whole subject and she being in it, that's going to get a lot of play.
Those things, a lot of new stuff on it too, a lot of extras on it too, including some audio commentaries and including one from Argento and theatrical trailer and just interesting stuff all over this movie, which is, like you said, timely for the moment.
Beatty Benedict, a Canadian horror director, made a movie back in the 80s called Beyond the Seventh Door. And it's never been on DVD before, incredibly. I couldn't believe that, so I had to research that claim, and it is in fact true. And Beyond the Seventh Door is now finally on DVD, courtesy of Intervision. And it's worth checking out. I mean, this was one of those sort of VHS horror classics of the day, big rental classic, and they've done a really nice job remastering it for DVD. It probably should have gotten a Blu-ray as well. I don't know why it didn't, but they did, and it's it's effective. It's a little bit dated. It's a whole kind of people trapped in a building with booby traps turned into a maze and turned into a kind of a sadistic. It's like and then there were none. It's sort of a variation on and then there were none. The old Agatha Christie thing. It's another one of those deals. But it's got its moments and it's clever and it's the kind of thing you would expect somebody to remake if they were ever to discover it, because it certainly could you could take this premise and do a lot with it. A lot of extras on here. Great audio commentary with B.D. Benedict and his lead actor, Lazar Rockwood. Interviews with everybody who was involved. A little kind of another featurette that relates to something I can't really explain because it'll give something away. But as long as we're talking about taglines, Beyond the Seventh Door, here's the tagline. In order to reach it, one needs 7 lives. To find out what's behind it, one has to die. It's a little bit wordy, but
on point and makes sense. What's going to have to happen? Well, this is what's going to have to happen here. Oh my God! Sergio Martino. So like when all those giallo films were, particularly after Dario. Yeah. And pretty much every Italian, 20-year-old who had a can of red paint decided that they were a director of this stuff. And Sergio Martino was one of them. This film, when it came out in the United States, was called Too Young to Die. The Suspicious Death of a Minor. Yeah. Is what it's actually called. And, what I will say about this film, in addition to all of that sort of Argento, giallo sort of dynamic, there's a crime thriller in this. Yeah. And that actually has more along the line of the Stendhal syndrome that we just talked about a moment ago. So that's what you have here. But it's still, just a giallo film. Special edition, DVD Blu-ray, which, again, does have some really neat special features on it. Another 2K restoration, again with the optional English subtitles and soundtrack, and again with a new audio commentary. So look, if you're into this kind of stuff, you're probably gonna want to pick this up and add it to the collection.
So, Michael Williams is a director who made a movie called The Atoning. I'm not familiar with Michael Williams. He wrote and directed it. Does a commentary. Perfectly competent, very capable, very nicely done. Not a lot of money, but he's put a very solid little chiller together about a family haunted by ghosts. Kind of. There's more to it, but it's the idea of a family experiencing kind of a poltergeisty journey through some kind of a strange, horrific something. Not to give anything away. Actually, it's a sharp idea. It's a good cast. It's well put together. It's from Gravitas Features, and this is brand new. This was just made, and this is where you find the gems. Some of these straight-to-video gems are actually really decent horror films, and this is somebody who could have a career doing some other things. Michael Williams, good luck to you. You made a good, scary little family horror film.
Yeah. I got Wish Upon here. This movie came out. I think I was on the show the week that this movie came out, but for some reason I didn't happen to see it, and then I caught it later. Ryan Felipe film. And I got to tell you, this is not bad. This is the guy who directed this. Directed Annabelle. You know those Annabelle films?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
doing fairly well.
Sure.
John R. Leonetti. This film was actually pretty good too. Didn't do as well as those. Just of it is this: Ryan Felipe plays this guy. He brings this little music box home.
Yeah.
To his daughter, and she gets it, and she starts making these wishes, and the wishes come true. But like all of these movies, you have to pay for that.
Oh dear.
And that's what the movie's about. And I got to tell you, fairly effective in that way. It really was. Special features here include a lot of stuff, including an interview with the director and the rest of the cast. And so I don't know, an effective little movie that for whatever reason just didn't catch on. Pick it up now. Catch it now. This is a good Halloween to go ahead and watch this one along with Annabelle and the rest of those things you got.
We are getting down to the end here. Spider is an interesting foreign horror psychosexual thing. This is a Latvian movie from 1991. You don't see a lot of movies from Latvia. Let me be honest. Latvia does not exactly.
Latvian movie industry.
Yeah, Latvian movie industry doesn't really exist. So this is a bit of a strange anomaly. But it's a worthwhile anomaly. Obviously the Russian, the language is Russian, but the movie is Latvian, and it's directed by a guy named Vasily Mass, M-A-S-S, and this is another one that probably warrants being remade at some point. And I hate almost saying that, but it really does. It has a whole kind of, you just think if you threw a really big Hollywood budget at this thing, and you put a really interesting cast in it, and you gave it some, really cool production values, this could be a real chiller and something really original. This would be a great discovery. It starts with a scenario that is almost a picture of Dorian Gray kind of thing, where this girl has to sit for a painting to portray, painting of the Virgin Mary, and the paintings, his paintings, come to life around her, and becomes kind of a Carnival of Souls type thing, sort of and then there are these additional. Oh man, it's hard to explain this without giving anything away. But where this leads eventually is on a journey. She has to undergo a journey, an odyssey, again, very much like in Carnival of Souls, and the evil that she has been fighting and discovering pursues her. I'll just put it that way. So all of this stuff with the painter and the paintings and ancient evils, it makes sense, and it actually is very, very interesting. And the film is called Spider, and by the Latvian director Vasily Mass, who really did nothing else. And these people are very smart, because their tagline is a quote by Sigmund Freud: "Subconscious sexual desires are closely linked to the sense of fear." It's not a great tagline, but it's technically true.
Quite accurate.
So why not?
I love it. The Lure is a 2015 film, which is actually rather intriguing, I think.
Yes.
The film is about these mermaids.
It's a Criterion film.
The Criterion.
There's a Criterion. This is our Criterion horror film for the week.
Know, and it's a musical horror. So it's a mashup of all kinds of genres, really. And it's about these mermaids, these two mermaids, mermaid sisters, and one wants to love and be a part of the human population.
Yeah.
And the other one wants to eat us. And that's it. It's a twist on a Hans Christian Andersen sort of theme. But it's quite good. Anyway, yes, because this is in fact a Criterion disc, it has all kinds of fantastic things on it, including high definition digital master. As well as several deleted scenes and interviews with the filmmakers, whose names are all what are they, Polish? Wade.
Oh boy!
There's no way I'm going to be able to say any of that. But it's a very, very good movie.
Yeah, Polish.
Agnieszka.
Agnieszka Smoszkinska. That's the best you're going to get out of me.
Yeah, you did it beautifully.
Yeah.
Anyway, a very effective movie from the Criterion Collection.
And then we have Inquisition, which is a Spanish horror film from 1976 by Paul Naschy. Paul Naschy, who of course starred in all of his own movies. They are cheesy and creepy and hilarious, and they are a genre unto themselves. This takes place in 16th century France. It is during a kind of Inquisition, not the Inquisition. This is a French Inquisition. There were many Inquisitions. The Spanish is just the one that gets all the publicity. It's not really fair. The other ones are all just kind of also rans. But during this particular Inquisition, the Paul Naschy character, who is the Inquisitor, he goes to this one particularly haunted region, and all hell breaks loose, literally. There's a lot of torture in this. It's not very convincing, but the fact that this feels so of its era, so 1976, and it just reeks of 1976 film stocks and audio recording gear. It couldn't have been made any other time. There's actually kind of a kitschy quality to it. This was actually Naschy's directing debut, and not that it matters. His movies are all kind of equally amateurish. He didn't really learn anything. He didn't. His first film, his last film, they're all the same. He doesn't learn anything. He doesn't need to. But it gets interesting because he. Well, I won't tell you anymore. Let's just say Naschy wore a lot of hats in this movie. This has easily my favorite tagline: "The Lord of Darkness in the beautiful body of a woman."
That's what That's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah.
What do I got here? I got Popcorn, 1991 film. Actually,
Oh, this is terrific.
I reviewed this movie in 1991 again for the newspaper we were working for at the time, which is kind of a cross between like a sort of like Leatherface movie and Phantom of the Opera.
Yep.
You have these kids who are putting on this sort of like horror fest movie thon. This is perfect for Halloween. Now that I think about it, and they're putting on this movie thon, and this killer is going around killing people wearing other people's faces. You know, kill you, take your face, kill your friend. Take his face, kill his friend. It's all going on in the movie theater. It's really, this is 1991, but it's good sort of 70s, 80s horror. The name of the movie is Popcorn for a reason. Sort of neat. And lots of neat special features on this too. Audio commentary track with the director Mark Harrier. And Jill Schoen. Dee Wallace is in this movie. Tony Roberts is in this movie. So yeah, a chance to see some actors you haven't seen in a while too. So very neat. 1991's Popcorn.
And we have a kind of I'll try to do my best to describe this. Dario Argento. One more Dario Argento movie. Phenomena. This is Phenomena from 1984, starring an incredibly young Jennifer Connelly, believe it or not. I had never known that Jennifer Connelly worked with Dario Argento.
Me either. This is pre-Labyrinth?
Yeah.
Younger than that?
1984.
That's as young as I go back with her.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is 1984, right around the same time, I guess it would be. Anyway, so Jennifer Connelly goes to a girls' school in Switzerland where there's like a homicidal lunatic on the loose. And the only thing that makes this more than just a girl being chased by a homicidal lunatic is that Jennifer Connelly has powers. She's a little Carrie-like.
Gotta love
There's a little Carrie angle going on here. I won't tell you what her powers are because that's the coolest revelation. That's the one thing that makes this movie really, really fun and interesting. And it just gets really icky. It's really one of the few Dario Argento movies that didn't gross me out, where I thought that's kind of cool and clever and fun. So Phenomena is worth checking out. Motorhead, Iron Maiden, a lot of great music on the soundtrack. Yeah, it's
kind of hot.
It's a good soundtrack. So this is good. There's also a documentary among the extras called Dario Argento's World of Horror, and then there's the 83-minute release of this movie from its American release, where it was known as Creepers.
Ah, yes,
so,
Creepers. Sorry,
Creepers was the actual American release, but Phenomena is the original title, Dario Argento's Phenomena, and it's on Blu-ray from Synapse. Check it out.
I know I saw that movie in '84. You know you've had a hit television series when you don't even need to use the name of it anymore on the AHS.
That's all it is.
American Horror Story, baby. Roanoke. To be honest with you, I did not see. This is the 3-disc set that contains all 10 episodes of season 6. Are you a fan? Do you watch the
Not
series?
really. I know people I know who love this show, like our friend Dean, who I went to film school with. Dean loves this show. I think he's disappointed in the new season, but
I like the idea of it more than
I
the
like-
actual,
I
I like the
agree.
idea of this sort
Yeah.
of roadshow
Yeah.
company. It's like
Yeah.
a stock company in
Yeah.
theater. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Bringing these actors back, letting them reshape themselves and do it again. I'm not a big horror guy in the first place. Nevertheless, people who I know who love this stuff really, really love this stuff. This includes all kinds of extras on it, and I imagine that if you're a fan of it, you're going to want to go ahead and pick this up. Special features, and it also includes a Q&A with the cast and creative team from the show. So I'm AHS. You know what it means. Go ahead and get the DVD.
All right, folks, that wraps it up for our Halloween show. Have a terrific week. Go get yourself some of these movies. You got time. You got a week before Halloween. Load up. If you're having a party, any of these could give your guests a really good time. Put it on the big screen. Load it up in the background. Have a grand time. Scare the children when they show up at the door. My daughter, you know what hero's going as? Guess this was her idea. She's going as Zero, Jack Skellington's dog from The Nightmare Before Christmas. You are gonna love the costume. I'll send you a picture of the costume
Are
when
you
she's
guys
in it.
building the costume, or do they actually sell that one someplace?
Christy found a place in England. She had to order it through what's the place where you get all the handcrafty stuff?
Oh, yeah. What is that thing?
Yeah, it's like eBay for people
Etsy
who
or something like that.
Etsy. That's it. The people who do it's like the eBay for basket weavers. It's she found it on Etsy. Believe it or not, there's nothing in the United States, and she found this woman in England who made these custom-made Zero costumes, and she ordered it. And it's adorable. It's ridiculously cute. I can't stand how cute she is wearing it. It just kills me. So we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna have a blast on Halloween. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm still trying to find sugar-free Kit Kats.
All
See
right.
what happens with that.
All right, everybody. Have a great Halloween. We'll see you next week.
It's close to midnight. Something evil's lurking in the dark. Under the moonlight, you see a sight that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes the sound before you make it. You start to freeze as horror looks you right between the eyes.
of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell.
I'm gonna do it tonight.
The foulest stenches in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller. Ha 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 ha!